Good morning. Happy Monday. I'm the Moon Mama. How are y'all doing today? I'm doing my video, baby. I'm not talking to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, that's a first. My son is so sweet. So today is Monday. Monday is governed by the moon, and the moon just so happens to be in Cancer. So we are having like a double moon day, and so what that means is that there's lots of feelings, and there's a lot of emotion. Cancer is our internal worlds, and so it's how we're feeling within ourselves. And if you know people who are cancers, they're such an interesting bunch, right? Because they feel everything but say nothing about what they're feeling. It's the strangest thing. And Cancer governs the mother. So interesting enough, today I have a reading with the mother. I'm going to be reading both of her children today. And I really encourage you all, if you're mothers, to get readings for your children. You don't have to come to me to get them, but you can go to anyone. But it's important to understand the internal worlds of your children so that you can really meet them where they are. I had a reading with a woman the other day who had a child who had a very active internal life. You know, children are really close to the source, and they're still pent into other dimensions or plugged into other dimensions. And so when we can understand this as parents and support them and affirm them and give validity to what it is their internal worlds are having going on, it creates confidence, and it can later avoid depression and all the things that can come from adulthood or adolescence that are pretty significant. But if you just can begin to understand your children early and begin to have language for them to make sense of the world that they are in, it's very supportive. Anyway, so the moon moved into Cancer yesterday, and like this Venus retrograde is up in Gemini, and we're having a new moon in Gemini, and the moon was in Gemini yesterday, void for a long time. The sun is still in Gemini, and we are currently being given the energy to redefine the way we relate. And I am having the most profound time with this because yesterday I had an experience. I just recently got a Mac computer. I've been PCs all my life, and then a PC I had crashed, and someone said you should get a Mac, and I did. And a friend of mine came over yesterday to help me set up my Mac, just to help me understand how to work with it, and like they love Macs. And so for whatever reason, we were talking about my mother, and we were talking about my mother, and I had a memory of when my father died and the funeral. And it goes like this. So we're at the funeral at a church in Los Angeles, a small church. My family, my grandfather was a pastor. So my family had a church. Like, I grew up in the church that was my family's church. I've never talked about this that much. But I was raised by my grandmother, so that's why I grew up in the church, because I was raised by my grandmother. It was my father's mother and my paternal grandmother, and her father was a minister from Louisiana, but we had a church here in Los Angeles. And my father's funeral was in that church. And I remember the funeral, and I remember what I was wearing. I remember sitting next to my mother. I remember it being packed, standing room only, people standing up around. And I remember that there were a lot of women. My father was a pimp, so there were a lot of women I could hear, and a woman behind us crying, sniffling, crying, and me looking back at her, and she was so distracting. And the 13-year-old me looking at this woman and wondering, like, why is she crying like that? And looking at my mother, and noticed that my mother was stoic, just looking straight ahead, never cracked a smile, never looked at me, never cracked a tear, never dropped. She was just stoic, true Aries warrior, just. and women all around crying, and people, and my grandmother. And I remember just noticing that my mother, like I said, she was stoic. She didn't crack, her face never cracked. And all of these other women just weeping. And it just felt so surreal. And I remembered that yesterday while my friend was here and we were working on my computer. And I told him the story, and I said, I'm going to have to find someone to talk to my mother, because I need to understand what was going on inside of her. And my friend, who is an actor and someone who's capable of very much transcending things, said, I can do it. And we sat together, and I just asked them questions that I wanted to ask my mother, and they answered them. And it just blew my mind, because everything they said was absolutely the truth. I could feel it in my body. I asked my mother, why did she die when she died? I asked her, how did she feel at the funeral? I asked her, was she angry? I asked her about her relationship with my father. And then I had another memory. I remembered how my mother had been pregnant, and my father wanted her to have the baby. They were divorced. They were separated, but she was pregnant. They were still seeing each other, and she was pregnant. And my father really wanted her to have this baby, and she wouldn't do it because she knew that he was who he was. She knew that his life wasn't ready for another child. She's like, we can't take care of the child that we have, and I'm not going to have another. And she had an abortion, and my father was so angry. I remember he was so heartbroken. And then he died shortly after that. And I remember him sort of blaming her for that. I remember that there was like, if you would just do this for me, it would save my life. And she was like, no, I'm not going to do that for you. Because it was not going to save her life. And just the memories of those things have been a lot. They've been a lot. But it's helping me look at the way I created my relating style. It's helping me look at this Venus in retrograde. And like I said, if you can understand who your parents were, how they related to one another, then you can see what's really influencing you, and what's influencing your relationship style, how you become who you are. And that's the value of this Venus in retrograde. And that's why I encourage you to take this course, and you can find it in my link tree, so that you can begin to think about and explore how your relating style came to life, who you are through your relationship. And if you look at your parents, you will recover yourself. And this is the work. And I'm telling, like right now, just talking about this, I feel really emotional. I feel like yesterday was a beautiful day because I was able to have these revelations, and I have this incredible person in my life who can go to these very deep, profound places with me effortlessly. And it's still a lot. I can fall out today and be in a puddle of tears, and because it's still a wound. It's still overwhelming. It's still a lot. And I'm grateful. And I get to reclaim that. And so I will do work on that. I will do the rituals. I will do the journaling. I will do the meditations and the prayers, the ancestral things. I'm going to set up an altar for my mother so that I can begin to heal that part of myself even further, but that part of my lineage. Because it's not just my mother, it's her mother and all of the mothers. who have been carrying so much pain and trauma as we have been in this experience. And so it's our responsibility. Whoever has it now, it's your responsibility to heal it. Whether you inherited it, whether you are a mother, because if you don't, you will pass it down to your children. And this feeling that I have has been so debilitating, and I wouldn't dare want to pass this down to my child if I have a choice. If it's his to work with, okay, so be it. But if there's a choice and I can free him up and unleash this experience, this energy, and release it and make it something else, I would prefer to do that. And so this is the work of our lineage, of our heritage, what we inherit from our parents, the feelings, the beliefs, the traumas. That stuff has to be worked out. And if it's not, you pass it on to the generation after you. So I'm doing the work to heal 7 generations before me and 7 generations after. And I feel honored to do it. And it is the hardest work I have done of my life. There's no other work that compares. So with that, I encourage you to sign up for the Venus Retrograde course. Hang out with your children today. Nurture yourself. Just be good to yourself. All right, you all. Peace and blessings. I'm the Moon Mama. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.